This week with the Thanksgiving holiday, Jeff and I, as well as the iBerkshires team, are taking a break from the news to spend some time with our families, and we hope that you do the same.
We'll still be bringing you two great interviews. The first with Sarah Margolis-Pinio from Hancock Shaker Village. And then we talked to Pittsfield Prospers about focusing on the positive aspects of Pittsfield. You know, I took my, my nephew, my mother, and my sister to Hancock Shaker Village. It's an incredible place. My nephew got chased by goats. We made biscuits. We rang the bell. It was great. You were telling me earlier you went there as a kid.
Yeah, I remember going there all the time for field trips in elementary school, and it was always great. It was always the best day whenever we had plans tripped out to Hancock Shaker Village.
It really is a fun place, and Pittsfield Prospers is just one of many organizations in Berkshire County focusing on the positive,
which is something that we definitely need to look at a lot more, for sure.
It's so easy. You see bad news every day in the news. We're responsible for some of it. We do report it here, but especially on Thanksgiving, focus on the good stuff. I will be focusing on gravy, which I will put on literally everything I eat. Your favorite
those
part?
Mashed potatoes.
Oh my God! As long as it's off the plate and onto the table.
Definitely.
What's your favorite part of Thanksgiving? Favorite food? I don't care about favorite part. Favorite food?
Honestly, I feel like it's just the mashed potatoes because I'm just like you. I just love to overflow it with gravy.
And I'm sure they're healthy. I'm sure you use low-fat milk.
Yeah, for sure. Extra butter.
Extra light butter?
Yeah, let's say that.
Thank you very much for joining us on this Thanksgiving edition of iBerkshiresTV, and it is fitting on Thanksgiving that we have maybe somebody, Sarah Margolis-Pinio, from maybe one of the most Thanksgiving-y places in Berkshire County. From Hancock Shaker Village, you were the curator of the Hancock Shaker Village Museum. And thank you very much for joining us, first of all.
Of course. Thanks for the invitation.
You came all the way up from Hancock to Pittsfield here.
I did.
And you, of course, we've been getting to know each other a little bit off set. You recently moved to Dalton. You are now a Berkshire County resident. The first thing I want to talk about is you have the 60th anniversary of the Hancock Shaker Village Museum coming up.
Yes, that's correct. And so we're celebrating in many ways throughout our season next year. We actually reopen to the public next April with, of course, our annual celebration of baby animals, which is, course, a regional hit. And then from there, we transition into our summer season, which includes the opening of two new exhibitions. The first is to honor our 60th anniversary as a museum, which is really a fantastic story. And many Berkshire County residents, I'm sure, actually may remember the opening of Hancock Shaker Village in 1960. The village at that time in the late 50s was occupied by three remaining Shaker sisters who over the decades had actually sold off quite a bit of the property.
That's incredible.
Raised a number of the buildings because they really couldn't afford to pay the taxes on them at that point. The Shaker sisters got an offer actually from the owner of a racetrack company who wanted to raise the entire village except for our very iconic roundstone barn around which he planned to build a racetrack.
Motor race or horses?
You know what? I'm actually not even sure. I believe it was motor, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
A group of concerned citizens, led by Amy Bess Miller, who of course is our founder of our museum, counter-offered to the Shaker sisters, and the offer was accepted. So we're actually one of the very rare Shaker sites that transitioned directly from being an operative Shaker village to a museum.
That's incredible. And the Hancock Shaker Village, of course, oozes history.
Yes.
That's really what it's all about, but it's not all that it's about.
No.
You're going to be working with a lot of contemporary artists for one of your next exhibits, and it's called?
It's called Design 2020. And so one thing that really struck me about the Shaker history and legacy is that it's really an ongoing legacy. The Shakers believed in communal living, they believed in sustainable agricultural practices, they believed in a pristine aesthetic of design and craft, and many of these values are still really resonant to us today, and they're things that we see practiced not only by community groups such as Roots Rising, who's one of our collaborators here in Berkshire County, but also by a number of contemporary artists and designers who are really rethinking the material landscape of our everyday life. The Shakers were very unique in American cultural history in that they designed these communities from the ground up, literally. They designed the objects, the day-to-day objects, tools, utensils, sort of household objects, to furniture, to the buildings themselves in a very sort of uniquely American style. And so this style is a touchstone for many contemporary artists and designers today, not only for its aesthetic, which we know for sort of very minimal forms, but also for its sort of ideological import, which would be world making, creating these unique pieces for a very specific lifestyle that really is outside of a more mainstream American lifestyle.
So you have a lot of these contemporary artists who take the very old, almost ancient shaker design and interpreting it in a modern way.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not really speaking specifically about individuals who are adopting necessarily a shaker aesthetic, but more so a shaker way of working and thinking about design. So these are individuals who, like the Shakers, are really thinking through making. The Shakers actually viewed craft as a worship practice. And so similarly, these are individuals who are in their studios and sort of rethinking everyday material design forms, things from plates and bowls to furniture to interior spaces, and thinking about how they could be designed differently rather than sort of within these established vocabularies of, chair and table. They're sort of thinking about how they can be redesigned to accommodate contemporary life.
That's incredible.
If that makes sense.
I know I'll certainly be there. I've been to Hancock Shaker Village before. I went with my mother, nephew, and sister, and I was telling everybody earlier, we got chased by goats.
Yeah.
We made biscuits. My little nephew rang the bell. He had the greatest day of all.
This is actually, I'm so thrilled you mentioned this because this is a great reminder. Part of our 60th anniversary exhibition and year is that we're going to be collecting Hancock stories. So these are stories sourced from the community about visits to the village. And so we're going to have an ongoing blog platform that we'll be uploading these narratives to, and they can be written, they can be audio, so we'll actually have an opportunity to come to the village and record your stories out loud, like a StoryCorps type model, or they can be visual. You can submit images of photographs or even objects that maybe you bought at the store in the 1970s. Anything that sort of reminds you of Hancock Shaker Village and there's a personal story attached to it can be uploaded to this sort of community-based repository of Hancock stories.
I think that's actually going to be an incredible hit, and I will probably go down, and maybe if my nephew comes back 3 years later all grown up, he can tell his story.
Perfect.
I was there in the summertime, and it was beautiful and lush and green. This, of course, is the holiday season. And like I said, there's almost no place more holidays than Hancock Shaker Village. What do you have going on? Thanksgiving, Christmas, anything?
Quite a bit, actually. So we closed Monday through Friday, this past Monday, Veterans Day weekend, but we are remaining open for Saturdays and Sundays through the new year. So you can come visit us from 10 to 4 p.m. each day. On November 30th, which is a Saturday evening, we are hosting our annual Grateful Supper. This is the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and this is a really lovely farm-to-table meal served in our very iconic brick dwelling. It's going to be a lot of fun. The weekend of December 6, 7, and 8, we are hosting our Hancock Holidays celebration, which is an annual weekend of events. We're doing a Yule Jam on Friday night, which will be a musical performance. Saturday and Sunday, we're hosting Brunch with Santa. And what I'm personally most excited about is our gingerbread house competition.
That's kind of what I'm most excited about as well.
Yeah. We are taking submissions from the community. There are 3 sort of tiers you can enter: adults, youth, 17 and under, and then also families. And the theme this year is outstanding works of architecture. And so these can be works of very well-known architecture, things like, Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water or Buckminster Fuller's geodesic domes, or they can be sort of extraordinary works of imaginary architecture invented by our participants. But regardless, they're going to be on display in our Poultry House Gallery for the weekend, and we'll have a panel of local celebrity judges judging the winner for each category.
So that's every weekend from now until New Year's.
Yes.
These are just the general hours.
10 until 4.
From 10 until 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. You have the weekend of the 6th, 7th, and 8th with all your celebrations. Also the gingerbread. And on the 30th, you have your farm-to-table dinner the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Correct, yes.
That's incredible. For people who say there's nothing to do in Berkshire County, we've just proved you wrong. Sarah Margolis Pinio, Hancock Shaker Village, you're incredible parts of Berkshire County. If you happen to run into Sarah, ask her. She has an amazing history of working. She's a curator, incredibly trained, museums all over the country, and I think she's going to be an incredible addition to Berkshire County. I cannot thank you enough for joining us. Y'all are welcome back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on iBerkshiresTV, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
It's easy to get caught up in bad news and think negatively about your community. But what if you flip the script? What if you started looking at the positive things in your community and change the story? And that's the focus behind the grassroots group Pittsfield Prospers. And we're here to talk to them today about what they're doing to make Pittsfield seem better. With us is Virginia O'Leary and Leslie Applegate. I apologize. I went blank on your first name. And Winton, the Pittsfield Prospers poodle. Thank you for coming in today. And
thanks for having us.
So what was the idea behind Pittsfield Prospers?
Well, I grew up here in the 40s and 50s during the halcyon days of what we used to call the General Electric, as if the was part of the title. And I've been back for about 4.5 years. I left after I graduated from high school and had a career elsewhere. And I was very distressed when I came back and began to reintegrate into the community, hearing all the negative narrative about Pittsfield. It was not perfect in the 40s and 50s. It is not perfect today. But you cannot move forward while you're looking backward. And I'm a social psychologist, retired university professor, and I thought, what can I do to give back? And Pittsfield Prospers popped into my mind, and I thought, we as a community can change the narrative.
Well, that's an interesting aspect too, because I said, as a journalist, we tend to look in the bad things because that's what people want to know about. But there are a lot of good things happening.
Many.
And Leslie, how did you get involved?
Sure, I've known Ginny for almost 5 years now. I've lived on and off in the Berkshires since about 2015. And when I moved back and Ginny told me what she had going on, it seemed exactly what we really sort of needed. Because when I had originally moved here, I'd heard not so great things about Pittsfield, but then moved up to here myself. And, it's not as bad as that perception really makes it seem.
So what have you been doing to sort of change the story?
Well, we have a Pittsfield Prospers pledge, which essentially says, when I hear someone say something negative, I counter by sharing a positive story. Not getting in somebody's face and saying you're wrong, but simply providing an alternative perspective. Because when we're silent, people read that as agreement. We've had close now to 200 people sign the pledge. We've been tabling. We have a website. Winton is on the website under the button Winton Wednesdays, and also on Instagram every Wednesday. Somewhere in Pittsfield doing something that is kind of showcasing Pittsfield in some way. Welcoming Wayfair, for example. And we have also been holding meetups. We've had a youth meetup. Leslie moderated a millennial meetup last week. Tomorrow night at the Greylock new Community Empowerment Center on Kellogg Street from 6 to 7:30, there will be a Gen X meetup. And then on Tuesday morning at the Community Empowerment Center from 8 a.m. till 9:30, a Boomers and Beyond meetup, all focused on 3 questions.
And those are all for the week of November 12th.
The one tomorrow is...
What is going to be happening in December?
On December 5th, there will be an intergenerational meetup which will bring together the demographics that have considered 3 questions. What do I treasure about Pittsfield? What would I most like to see change? And what am I willing to do to change it? And those perspectives will be shared.
How many people have been coming to your meetups?
Small groups, for sure. I'm hoping it gets bigger as we move forward. And in February, on the first anniversary of mounting this effort, Winton, Pittsfield's Prosperous Poodle, and I will be hosting a PCTV show, Pittsfield Prospers, interviewing people like Leslie who have moved here and found out it's not so bad, like me, like me, who left for decades and came back, and I plan to live here for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I think they're sort of, because of the GE leaving, and of course I'm from North Adams, so when the Sprague left, there was sort of, it became very pessimistic about what these communities could do. And I know in North Adams there's something called the NA-Amazing Initiative, where, you know, the goal is to put something out and look on the positive aspects of the things that are happening in the community. So what are some of the positive things in Pittsfield that you're sort of spotlighting?
Well, first thing I want to say is General Electric left Pittsfield 37 years ago. And it of course it cast a pall over the community, but we have to move on. And in terms of positive things, I was inspired by Blueprint 2.0, which was
the One
released in
Berkshire,
February, the One Berkshire effort. Wayfair's here now with ultimately 300 new jobs. I mean, things are happening. We have new LED lights on North Street, makes it daylight at 11 p.m. There's a lot going on, and we have to highlight that and get beyond. And by the way, one of the reasons I'm focusing on demographics in these original meetups, younger people, millennials, for example, they have no idea what was lost. And
right.
It's like, why do you talk about General Electric?
Right.
Whereas people in my age cohort have very clear memories.
Right.
So, but it takes a community. Yeah. And I think all of the pieces are there. We just have to join together to move forward.
So, Leslie, how are you reaching out to millennials and people of your age?
Sure. I have the friends that I do, and I think all of us know Ginny in some way through this initiative, and recognize the fact that this is the place where we are and the place where we've chosen to be, and what is it that we can do to continue to make it a place that we want to be. A lot of what we do in my age bracket is online, but I don't think that we should undervalue word of mouth, and that's generally how the word gets around. And just to your point about what's positive about Pittsfield, the thing that comes first to me is look at Barrington Stage Company. They just celebrated their 25th anniversary. And while they were in South County for some time, they've been doing quality work here in Pittsfield for a very a while now. And why do we discount that? How do we manage this perception that there's nothing going on here, or there's all kinds of detriment when something as positive as that has existed here for so long?
Well, why do you think people focus on the negative? Because I've seen people, like on a Facebook page, that say, oh, this wonderful thing is happening, and people are like, oh, but. There's always that but. Well, how do you...
Well, I think it's mindless.
Yeah. Mindless.
and I think that's what we're trying to do by suggesting that there are a lot of things that are not in our control. But the narrative about our community is in our control. And with some awareness of the unintended consequences of the negativity, I think that we can move things forward, and we're trying to increase that awareness. And we do have, because of the broad demographic distribution, a communication problem. in the sense that older people rely on print.
Yeah.
Younger people rely on digital media of sundry kinds, be it Facebook or, other sorts, Instagram, Snapchat.
Yeah.
And we have to somehow get the word out on all those channels, and that's challenging. And
Yes.
I've suggested that I'm going to get a truck, an amplifier, and a megaphone, and start just going through the streets announcing things that there are to do here in Pittsfield. And I think people would be amazed. But here's the shocker. When it's in groups where I've said that, there's always somebody who says, great idea. Well, it's not really a great idea. But it speaks to the problem of disseminating information through multiple channels in order to focus attention on all of the positive things, because focusing on the negative stands in our way of progress. And that's self-defeating.
So you have a website?
We do.
You have a website. Do you have a Facebook page?
We do.
Okay, you'll be able to see that here on the screen. And you're going to be starting a show, Pittsfield Prospers, on PCTV.
That's correct.
Everybody watches television, right? Especially when it's on the internet, right? And what else? So do you have a newsletter or anything else that goes out?
We don't have a newsletter, but we do have occasional. I'm going to start some very short video clip interviews with people just talking about what they treasure. And let me tell you what the top 3 are.
Okay.
One is the community. Its diversity, its friendliness. I mean, there are many iterations of that. 2, the environment. What is not to love about the embrace of the Berkshire Hills?
Right.
And 3 is arts and culture. So the building blocks are here. We just have to promote them.
All right. That's great. Thank you for being with us. And everyone, check out the webpage, check out the Facebook page, go to a meeting, and think about the positive of your city.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In the spirit of Thanksgiving, we'd like to offer a big thanks to Mountain One for sponsoring this episode.
We hope that you enjoy your holiday with your families and friends, and join us next time for more news, interviews, and more with iBerkshiresTV.